Welcome, Paul, to Metallarium Pages. For me, it's a great pleasure to talk with you with one band that I lost since the 90s. Well, also love the first album in Ancient Beliefs in 2020, in 2001. Now,
Thank you.
so now, more than 20 years of this album, we have a third one. So we spoke about the band, the last album, more things related to the metal world. So we're starting, I think, with a common question. So why does the band take a long time to release a new album? Because the first album came 20 years later of the band was born in 1990. So then the second album came 9 years later, and now this new one came 30 years later.
Right. Oh, I can tell you that there's usually just there's so many other things in life that is many times a priority, and those are the things that I have to take care of first, like being married and being a husband, and being a father, and work, and when you're the only income and you have a wife and child, and you have to pay for the house and the car, and there's no money for anything else. So I have to be last.
Well, okay. So, having released albums many years apart, and with the new lineups every time. So, do you think the feeling of the first time that you released the Ancient Beliefs, or perhaps your first EP in the 1993, is repeating once again with the new album?
I think that when it comes to having like a certain formula of a band, kind of like a recipe, like a soup or a classic Coca-Cola. I think for me, it's very important as a fan, not just as a writer. Because I got to think of it as a fan. I got to think of it how I like to receive music from what I'm a fan of, and for instance, like I can go to give an example when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I was a big Metallica fan. Mm-hmm. And that's probably why I started learning how to play guitar, and because I loved Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. But then, you get the Black Album, and you hear this Enter Sandman, and you hear this watered down formula, and then you hear an album like Load or Saint Anger, and you hear something that's so different from the band that you love, and I hate that feeling, and I don't want to present that feeling to fans either. So I've had growth from Manifested Apparitions in '93 to, say, In Ancient Beliefs to The Faithless, but I want to keep the formula intact. So it's going to be the same flavor. It's going to be the same taste. And I think that when I hear the biggest compliment to me from fans is that there's no contemporary influences. It sounds exactly how it should. It sounds exactly like the 90s. And and it's not like I'm trying to do something like that on purpose. It's just what's in me. It's just what's natural in my writing. And I don't care about anything that is considered more common or something that has evolved beyond what I've done. So it's not the same death metal to me. So I don't care if there's 1,000 bands that sound like Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel and Deicide and Cupping the Microphone. And if you want to listen to that, there's so many bands that you can listen to, but it's not going to be Deteriorot. So I don't care what they're doing. I don't need to copy them. I like to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right. Since ancient beliefs, I always said that the Deteriorot has personal sounds. It's not like Deicide, not like Cannibal Corpse, a lot of bands more. It's very different. Your sound is very different from the second wave of the death metal, like Incantation, like Suffocate, other kind of bands. It's very different. You are like a black sheep into all this kind of death metal style, on all of them. That's why I love Deteriorot since since the beginning. But we're talking about now a little history, but that's important for the people. Oh, the band starts in 1990. That's important for me because I remember that I listened your first EP, Manifest, Operation of the Holy Spirit at that time. But your first album came 11 years later. At that time, well, now you told me that you have that you got more attention for the family, work, etc. That's because you over 40. But and the 90s, you had 17 years, 18 years, like 18 years. So why did you decide to delay so much the release of the first album from Deteriorot?
Oh, it was nothing that was by choice. Okay. It was In Ancient Beliefs should have came out in 1994. Mm-hmm. So In Ancient Beliefs was part of a 3-album deal that I had with Drum Productions. So I signed a 3-album deal with Drum Productions in 1992, but that was really coming off of, there was always issues with some kind of label stuff. So initially we got signed in it was late 1989 when the band was under the name of Mortuary, because that really started in 1988. So we were signed to Thrash Records along with Revenant. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then around that time, there was just a lineup transition between the drummer guitarist of Mortuary. They were both like a package deal. They were both brothers. So there was a split with the band, and at that point, I got John Brody to be on drums, and it was John Brody, myself, and Jim. And when we were writing some new songs, we just decided, I think these songs sound like a different direction, and I don't think it should be Mortuary anymore. And let's try to be something else. And then there was Mortuary from Mexico. So then it's like, okay, so we definitely have to change our name now. So we changed to Deteriorot. So this was after 2 years. So we had a deal with Thrash Records. It came where it had been so long, and we told them that, we weren't going to be Mortuary anymore. We were going to be Deteriorot, and we were going to go a different direction. And at that point, we got a deal with Afterworld Records to do a 7-inch EP. Mm-hmm. And then they did an EP for a band called Putrefact, which is from the same city I'm in Paterson, New Jersey. And then afterwards, they said, we don't have the funds to release your record. So at that point, I reached out to many different people in the area that were also doing death metal and so forth. And I got a letter from Dave Rotten from Drum Productions. And I think he told me that one of the guys from maybe Demigod had given him our demo, and he offered us a deal, and we did a 3-album deal. But unfortunately, after Rotravor's album, Dave told me that they were shutting down Drum Productions. So we had this album that was In Ancient Beliefs, and we had these songs for it, and we thought it was just such a great record, because we had it already in 1993.
Okay.
But yeah. So that's what happened. So it didn't come out, and then when we got it was probably the worst news, the most terrible news that we can hear, being teenagers. We're all 18 years old, and we're still in school, and we're very proud of this success of we're going to have an album, and then we heard the news that the label was going to shut down, and so this dream just went up in smoke, and it was very depressing. It was very depressing. It was one of those things where the band never had a conversation with each other, like, hey, like, we're not going to play anymore. I think we were all just depressed, and we just didn't call each other. And it was nothing like we had bad feelings towards each other. I know that I can speak for myself. I was really depressed. I probably stayed in my bedroom for, I don't know, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years, and I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't call anybody. I was crushed. I was probably embarrassed. next thing I know, it's probably now 1996. And maybe I started reaching out again. And I think I probably reached out to our guitarist, Will, and around maybe 97, I think. And I remember, he came over and I think we celebrated my birthday. And it's just, the time passes and I have to just, make a living and work a job and help my mom. My mom was a single income and, didn't have my father in the house. So I just had to help work and help pay the bills. And time just passes by when you're waking up to a job every single day and you just work, you go home, work, go home. It's like months pass by, years. Then suddenly, it's 5 years. Then suddenly it's 6 years. And you're just like, wow. It's like, so all I'm doing is going to work and coming home. And every once in a while I go to a show and life gets pretty boring. But it goes fast when that happens. And then around maybe around the late 90s, probably 99, somehow or another, I got into a conversation with the drummer, John, and we talked about this In Ancient Beliefs album. Like, wow, it's too bad that it never came out. It should have came out in '94, and it was always the what if. What if it came out? Like, what if it came out in '94? What, how different could things have been? And why don't we still put? Can we put it out now? And would anybody still be interested? Will anybody remember Deteriorot? And I contacted the record label. I contacted Dave Rotten, which was now Repulse Records. I called him up on the phone and I asked him if he remembered me, and he said, "Of course I remember you. Of course I." He's like, "Deteriorot legend. Of course." So I don't know anything. I'm not involved with the scene, and so he says, "Yeah." He says, a lot of people say Manifested Apparitions is a legendary release, and I didn't know that because I wasn't in touch with the underground anymore. I was just going to work and coming home and paying bills. So immediately he said, if you're interested in recording In Ancient Beliefs, he says, I'm interested in releasing it. And it probably took maybe about 2 years or so. And we recorded it in about 6 months, but we didn't know why In Ancient Beliefs wasn't being released, because now it'd been 1 year, then it'd been 2 years, and we had already submitted that recording. And then we come to find out that also Repulse Records was closing down too. It's like, wow, it's like, why does this always happen? So it happened with Afterworld Records, it happened with Thrash Records, it happened with now it's happening with Repulse. So he says, I'm very sorry, but I'm not going to be able to release it. But I did do a license agreement with World War III, and I transferred the rights over to them. So they're going to release it, and that's going to be in the USA. And that was Enrique Chavez from Sadistic Intent. He was the person that was running a lot of the death metal side of that label. And that record came out. It became a legendary release. We were seeing it in magazines. We were seeing it in any stores that were not metal. We were seeing In Ancient Beliefs in the store. So, like, when we pick it up, we see it's like, wow, it's like this. We're just like in a regular mall, and you see it. You see it in the store where they're selling, I don't know, Celine Dion, Titanic, and a record is in there. So you see a Britney Spears CD, and our CD is there too. So that was crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of things happens at that time.
Yeah.
As you told me. So I remember when I spoke with the Wolf from ASAP, and he told me that, well, when a new member enters to the band, he still captured the essence from ASAP since the beginning to now, because this is the whole essence. And relating to this, since you are in the band since the beginning to now, just the second album released with the same drummer as you released the first album. But now you have a complete lineup. You all the time change lineup, and with this aspect, perhaps the new members change in some way the sounds that you achieve over the years since the 1994 that you create the first album, or do you record the first album? And now with this with all these lineup changes, the sound for you change because all the time, or perhaps will you keep it as the gatekeeper of the sound of Get Deteriorot?
Well, that's a good question. So, what the best way to answer that is that really, Deteriorot is my creation. It's music that I write. So, I really just need a lineup, really, just to play live.
Okay.
Okay. So I can't play the drums.
Yeah.
I don't know how to play the drums, but I can write the drums.
Okay.
I'm a composer, just like you hear a movie score, like if you hear Star Wars or Indiana Jones or anything like that. There's one person, a composer, that is writing all those parts, all those. So he's writing the music for all that. So that's how I've always written for Deteriorot. You know, when John Brody, the old drummer, when we started putting the songs together, I would tell him what my vision was for Deteriorot. I said, so what I want to do is I want to have some chords, some guitar chords, but then I want the drums to just really bring it. So I would give them like what the pattern would be, So like if something was like dum, so you're going to do a lot, you're going to really bring it. So it's like we'd go over it a few times until it's right, until the vision is there, So when I'm doing this part, these accents, that's where you're going to do these cymbals. Then you're going to do fill. So you're going to follow it in. So I have to lead it in because I'm writing what is called, in the music world, it's called dynamics.
Okay.
So I like to write with dynamics. I like to build. So just like, if you saw the movie Jaws with the shark, it wouldn't be the same if it didn't have that music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm building. I'm built. These are all called dynamic builds. So I do that with a lot of Deteriorot's music. So when people hear it, they always know, the atmosphere that I hear from it, or a lot of it reminds me of music from Finland, Finnish type of. It sounds like a horror movie. So these are kind of like the spooky parts that I like to write, but it's all part of the writing. So really, no matter who is part of the lineup, I'm always going to bring over that vision of my creative work. So just like if I was Quentin Tarantino writing a movie, I need an actor to play the part.
Yeah.
I don't need an actor to change the story. Yeah. So if I have a script and I say, hey, so this is the story, the parents get killed, and you're going to go seek revenge for it, I don't need the actor to say, well, you know what? I don't think the parents should be killed because my parents were killed. So let's change the story, and you know what? Nobody should die in this movie. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to create and produce music, and I need somebody to play the parts that I can't play myself. And these are the parts that I played.
Okay, well, and with this aspect, working on 3 albums now and 2 EPs and all singles and etc. and more music in Deteriorot, as a songwriter, how do you avoid not repeating yourself at the same time keep pushing your sound?
Well, what I think that people want to hear something that is familiarity. At the same time, I would like to have a little bit of evolution in my writing, but I don't want to change what the formula is. So I think that's the most important part. When I write Deteriorot, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but if you listen to a record, there's no 2 songs, not even 2 songs in a record that sounds the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, because when I write, I like to have peaks and valleys. So when you're listening to it, you're going to hear in Ancient Beliefs, it's going to be a fast song. Next song is going to be a mid-pace. Next you're going to get a doom song. Mm-hmm. After a doom song, you're going to get a speed song. So I'm very analytical with all of my writing, so it's not just when I'm writing a song. Once the songs are put together, I'm analytical and I study about the track list. So the track list of how a person is going to perceive the record is very important.
Okay. Okay. So you told me a few minutes ago that since the beginning you try to work with Dave Rotten at that time with Drum Productions to release the first album. Then you intend again with Repulse Records, but both labels are closed. But now, well, then the first album came up around with World War III. So now, but the release, but then Dave Rotten re-released the album, Yansha Believes, but the new label, Extreme Music. So how do you decide with these two experiences with Dave Rotten close two labels and now has a new label, Extreme Music? Well, how do you decide to work again with him with the previous experience that you got when the Drowned and Repeals?
Well, regardless of, I understand that what happened with Drowned wasn't uh, anything that he closed it on purpose or anything like that. To begin with, he was helping with promoting Drowned, and it was originally a record store called Hard Vinyl. So there was a person that was his store and that was his money, and Dave was a young person, so hey, I can uh, contact some bands, and we sell a lot of records here in the store, and we can do a label. And Dave Rotten is a person that he loves death metal, loves it, loves it, loves it. He is one of the most genuine death metal fans, and he does this for a big love of it. So I understand what his passion is, and at the same time, he's also a very good friend. So I know that whatever happened before with Drowned wasn't anything that uh, he chose to do. So uh, when they had, I guess, so many bands that were getting advances as well for recording budgets. So more money was going out than what was coming in. So, you know, business, things like that happen with business. So once him and I talked again, and we talked about he contacted me about doing the Faithless album because I had a demo of the Faithless, which was only about 5 songs, unfinished. And so his idea was to have the Faithless demo as an EP. But I told him, I was like, we really had about I think we had somewhere around maybe 8 to 10 songs in the studio that were unfinished. So we have actually an entire album, and all I have to do is finish recording some more guitars and do some new vocal tracks. And next thing I know, within a month, I'm in the studio recording all of that, and I wasn't looking at all to reform Deteriorot or to do another album. I thank Dave Rotten for really lighting a fire under me because I wasn't doing any of that. He just contacted me because I'd like to do the Faithless EP, and then it turned into an album.
Mm, okay.
So
You told me in that the Deteriorot has their personal sounds, and I believe that. I told you that the Deteriorot has their personal sounds since the 1993, since the first EP, since the first album, and you told me that you feel bad or you felt bad when the first album didn't came out in the 1994. As well, you have a lot of frustrating sensations, feelings. That's normal because the album didn't came out at that time when you finish it. So if we try to suppose or relate this kind of aspect, do you think that if that album had come out in 1994, things will be better for Deteriorate right now or
you know,
different?
it is one of those things where I look back and I can't change the past.
Yes.
I could say, hey, if that album came out, what could we have done? But you know, I can't uh, I can't waste so much time on things that I can't change. So then I say to myself, what can I change today? What can I change today? So forget about '94 and what could have, should have, what should have happened. We could have been bigger than this, or we could have been bigger. So I look at it this way: what happened in the past, it happened. maybe that gave a more mystique to the band. Maybe that gave a more of a demand for the band. Oh, it's such a mysterious band, and they don't put out an album for a long time, and then they come out, and boom, we put out an album, and then we're playing festivals, and we do some tours, and then we disappear again, and life happens, and then we're like this mystery. So then when we come back, people want to go see us live. People want to hear the records, and they feel they're going to get quality. So what can I change today instead of changing in the past? I was like, well, what I can change today is I can work on more marketing. I could do a lot of more promotion. I have a lot of experience working for other businesses with promoting their brands, promoting their products, doing their advertising. So everything that I could have learned for the last 25 years for other people, I can apply that today to Deteriorot. So I don't care about, hey, what could have happened in 94. I care about, like, what can I do today to make more people aware that, hey, there's this cult band. Maybe I've heard of the name, maybe I haven't heard them, either or now I'm hearing this band. Oh, who is this? I see a lot of Deteriorot. So I'm focusing more on what can I do today. And within 6 months, I think I've done a great job with resurrecting a band that hasn't had an album in 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the past 6 months, I've been able to work out a new album and headlining a European tour, all based on just marketing and promotion. By myself. No big money, no corporate management, no sponsors, just myself and the people, the old-fashioned way, networking, talking to people, spreading the word, having people that like the music tell other people about it. And that's the original way. That's the way of the underground. And I'm proud to be part of the underground.
Yeah, that is true. That's the part of the underground. DIY. Yeah.
Yes.
So talking about the other aspect, one you was born in the generation that, like me, over 40 years, that we believe the music created by an album. We hear the music and albums at least, and some EPs for them for there or there. So, but now the music industry changed completely. As you can see, now now new headbangers, or talking about people from 15 or 20 years, even 30 years old, they prefer to hear the music with singles and just put just one song from the album, just put this song from the album, and nothing more, no whole album, just 2 or 3 songs from the album. So with these aspects, what are you doing music in a world that prefer just single and not albums anymore?
I could tell you this. I don't care what anybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. You know how you mentioned that Deteriorot is the black sheep?
Yep.
That's a lot of my personality. My personality is always like that. I never fit in. I didn't fit in with my family. I didn't fit in school. And I didn't fit in even with a lot of the death metal scene. When we came out and we started seeing so much tech death and a lot of then what turned into, I don't know, maybe gore grind and slam, and you see a lot of the brutal technical aspects. I don't care. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And when I go ahead and I do it, and people might think, oh, well, there's so much advancement in death metal. And then whatever music we put out, doesn't matter if it was 93, 2001, 2009, or 2023. No one's ever disappointed when they hear it. They always say, man, this is great. I like it. This is like this is like that. And it's never the reason because old school death metal is a trend at a certain time. We put it out in regardless of whatever time it is. And it's always successful. Because I stay true to myself, because I don't care what anybody else is doing.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
need to be Morbid Angel. There's already a Morbid Angel. I don't
Yeah,
need to be
yeah,
Suffocation.
yeah,
There's a there's Suffocation, and there's 10,000 Suffocation clones, wannabes. So
yeah. A lot more. I think a lot more. Okay.
yeah.
No, there is a theme into your lyrics. Always you talk about the spiritism. Always you talk about the dead. All of this kind of aspect. And now you have a family. You told me repeatedly you have a family. You are work for the family. So how do you in this aspect? How do you separate the lyrical ideas that you have as a musician from your day by day? Because it's very different to speak about that, but day by day you are in front of that.
Well, day by day, I live as a person that has suffered a lot of mental illness and depression for many years. And if you look at the lyrics from In Ancient Beliefs, there's a lot of lyrics that became personal by then.
Mm.
So, I transitioned from being a stupid teenager with cliches and writing stupid lyrics that you read, and I'm not going to name any bands, but I could just say that you read some bands lyrics and it's just like, oh, we get it, you hate the Virgin Mary or whatever. It gets stupid after a while. How many times you can put upside down crosses, and so enough is enough. um I I decided that I wanted to make more of my lyrical content more about stories.
Okay.
Even as far back as, say, if you read the lyrics to a song that I made when I was about 16 years old called The Afterlife,
Okay.
it appears on Demo 92, and it also appears uh, on The Manifested Apparition. It's a story. It's a story of a soul in the afterlife. And it's a story that I remember my grandmother telling me when I was a child, when she would want to read you stories from the Bible, or she would come. I'm sure there was stories that she was making up. So she would tell me about this book of life, and that if your name, when you pass away, you have to be good, because if you're a good person and you pray and you go to church, then your name will be found in the book of life. So when you're in front of God and you're being judged, if your name is not found in the book of life, then you're going to be damned. Then you go to hell for life. So that's part that so those are part of my inspirations, is
Yeah.
just stories. So I wrote that, and that's part of my lyrics. If your name's not found in the book of life, to the lake of fire you shall be cast. So that's what the afterlife is, and I wrote songs that became more personal by the time I wrote In Ancient Beliefs. I had a song called Endless Hauntings of Demons in Despair. So those demons are not demons like the devil or anything like that. Those demons are the demons of that's depression. That's the demons of mental illness. So others may interpret it. Some people call demons their addictions.
Okay.
Some people may be addicted to alcohol or drugs or anything like that. So that could be their addiction. So the endless hauntings of demon, and it's just, it means it's my recurring depression. Something that I don't have a choice for. Something that sometimes just don't feel it. Sometimes I just won't go anywhere for a long time.
Hmm.
So these are things that I've worked many years to combat, and these are things that are just going to be a part of me, and it's part of my writing. But it became part of my Deteriorot lyrical content. I said, you know what, I'm not going to write stupid stories about uh, priests getting their heads cut off or anything like that. Stupid things like that. But I'm going to write things that are real to me. When I write a song about an ancient beliefs, it's also about just hearing um, people have these beliefs in archaic things, whether it's politics or religion, just people thinking that they have to follow a leader. Um, to me, it's just dumb, and it's things that I write about. So
Yeah, yeah. One thing that you said about one thing you said was when we were all teenagers at one point, and we are against everything. We are against this, against the politics, against the media, against everything, because we were teenagers at the 18, 15 years.
Right.
This is because of the age issues at that time. So now, over 40 years old, what happens to many of us when we enter in a different world? We leave this we leave this anti-established when the anti-systems ideas and become a part of the idea with that we are against at the teenager time.
Well, it really depends on your experience, and I still have conflict, so it's still what I write about. So if if you read if you read the large majority of the lyrics from, say, the Faith List, when I wrote the lyrics for the Faith List, I am maybe 36 years old at that time. So I have I have songs like "Apocalyptic Holy War." This is this was around war times, and I know I have military in my family too. So that song is about um, what was going on in the Middle East and so forth. These are things that can change your writing, and your lyrical content can mature and so forth. So yeah, I'm going to write about a lot of my conflicts. I wrote a song called "The Bataan Death March" because I saw a documentary about the World War II, how there was prisoners from uh, the USA and from the Philippines that were captured by Japan, and they were forced to march for several days, and many were killed on this march. And um, that's that's the story that I wrote about. So I still have a lot of angst. I still have a lot of angst with the world, and I still have a lot of uh, things that I don't agree about society, and these are the things that I choose to write about because yeah, I could be 49 years. I'm 49 years old, by the way. I'm 49 years old right now. I'll be 50 in a few months. I'll be 50 in March, but I still don't fit in. I still don't fit in, um, and I'm glad that I don't because it's one of those things where society may look at me different, but I laugh at them instead because they're all the same. I don't want to be the same like them.
Okay. Okay. Well, we are very far away from a little from the concept of the Deteriorot, but at the same time, relating with as I said in the previous questions, this new generation prefers to live to do the playlist, and you told me that you are not fit in everywhere, so that's very different. The way to
Right.
create music, etc. But if we relate the new forms of hearing music, for you, which song of this new that rebirth will fit perfectly for this new generation to wants to hear just one song to capture whole essence from Deteriorot.
If they were to hear just one song
Yes,
from,
one song because just one song plays played in their
if
playlist.
if if they want to hear just one song, I think the first single, "Dark Embrace," because it sounds like nothing that is contemporary, like zero, like none of that. So, and everybody that's heard it likes it because of it.
Mm. Okay, okay.
So
So
I'm not trying to fit in. Yeah, I'm not trying to fit in. I don't care. I don't care about how many stab wounds there are out there or bands that sound like that. It's not for me. So if you want to hear that, by all means, there's thousands of bands that sound exactly like that. Jun, 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 jun. That to me is not what I like. So I want to write what I like, and I think people like it because it's different, but it is part of an era that is trying to be copycatted and duplicated many times by old school death metal worship, but it's something that is coming naturally and organic from me.
mm, Okay, okay. We are very close to doing this interview, Paul. And for this aspect, what kind of plans do you have for the for the Deteriorot right now? Perhaps you will embark, or for this new album, well, perhaps you will embark a new tour in the next couple of months, weeks, years, who knows? Perhaps you will embark in Europe, US, or perhaps you will came to Latin America on a full tour. Who knows? What kind of plans do you have for this new album?
Well, right now we have a headlining tour with Ascended Dead from the U.S. And we are on tour from the beginning of August all the way up until September. And we are finishing the tour headlining on the first night of Killtown Death Fest in Copenhagen, Denmark.
No, okay, okay. Well, as I said, talking about other aspects in the music, or in general, the music. So you told me that you create everything by yourself. You just don't play music, but you create the drum parts for the music. Okay. So, but
right.
now we have one tool that is very efficiently for the like composers like you. Is like the AI. So if we relate to this aspect, so in the future, perhaps in some years, as you told me, just the lineup for now is for play live, the Deteriorot like shows, gigs, etc. But now, when you are into your studio and your solo room, perhaps do you think to use the AI to compose much better just your music to play just by yourself? Because some bands, like I remember Insidious Discrepancy or Putrid Pile from US, they play by yourself live, just with machines. Well, just the sound behind them. Perhaps do you will in the future will use the AIs to use more useful tool to create more music for the Deteriorot more easily or sometimes.
You mean AI as in that it will by itself come up with parts?
Yes, because yes.
No, because the parts that it would come up would probably not match the parts that I wrote in my head for the drums.
Okay. So perhaps in the future you will never use the AI to use because the AI replace a lot of things now.
Right, but AI isn't replacing my own creativity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if that was the case, I would just have another drummer come up with their own parts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, if another drummer is playing just a different beat to what the riff is, it's changing the feel of it's changing the entire story of the song. And it's not what I'm trying to present. I'd rather do nothing than for it to come out not the story that I'm trying to bring forth to the fans.
Okay. Well, Paul,
and that's another reason why so many years pass by without a release. Because if I can't find the right drummer that can play the parts that I'm trying to create, then it's not going to sound the same. There's been many times where I've spent days on just one song, and the drummer just really can't come up with the right parts, and then you have to move on. So.
Okay. Well, Paul, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. You're a terrific guy. I love your band since the beginning to now. Love this new album. Really. So perhaps you want to add something to your love it.
The rebirth.
Perhaps you will gonna add something to your Latin American fans and Metalero followers.
So we have a Latin American record label that I did a license agreement with to release the rebirth. So it will be released with Repugnant Records, which is part of Conjuro out of
Mexico,
Argentina.
Mexico. Oh,
Argentina.
Argentina. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will be released in about 5 or 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
So the Latin American market is going to be able to get the rebirth.
The rebirth.
We get a lot of glare from the light, so maybe just take this off. There we go. So Latin America, you're going to be able to get the rebirth to you.
Yeah.
So. And then it would be nice if we can go ahead and follow up and work on a tour in Latin America. So 2023 is about Europe. So we can see in 2024 if there is a way for a tour agency to work out a tour with us